This is Jimmy Carter 2.0. I mean, there's really no other way to describe any of this right now. As you look at these soaring costs of everything, right? The depressing US dollar, a total world catastrophe unfolding right before our very eyes, right there in Afghanistan. And it really feels, and I was just a little kid, but it feels like the 1970s all over again. I think people can relate to that, right? The mood of the country right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. Just a reminder, make sure you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, because there's a lot of people that don't want me saying what I'm going to be saying here in this show today and this show every day. So go to trishintel.com, sign up for the newsletter, make sure we have the ability to communicate directly with each other, because it's so important right now. Make sure that you go and you subscribe to this channel on Rumble, on YouTube. Make sure that you download the full audio version of this podcast on Apple iTunes and on Spotify. And I'm not kidding. I mean, we are looking at an environment right now that is very inflationary. Right? That's just the reality of this. You look at the inflation data that we've been getting in and over and over and over again, as you look at now 11.4% inflation just in rents in 2021. 11.4%. I mean, already we've seen producer prices increase 7.8%. Producer prices, right? That's how much producers are paying for goods and services. Well, that, of course, transfers over to consumer prices, which have already come in 5.4% repeatedly the last couple of months. I mean, this is not good. When you think of wages only going up about 1%, that means, guess what? Consumers are paying more for everything. And this always hurts the middle class the most, because it hurts people that, really that struggle, right? To make ends meet. When you think about rents going up, when you think about housing prices going up, when you think about the cost of gasoline going up, and when you think about healthcare costs, education, all of this, it takes its toll on the middle class and the poor. And so you've got Joe Biden out there saying he's doing everything to help the middle class, and yet you've got massive inflation. I mean, really, what is that about? There's a total erosion of the US dollar going on, which is significant, and which is why you need to think about how you're planning for your financial future. I say that because I want to make sure that everybody gets to enjoy the retirement that they want. But how can you when the value of the US dollar is worth 15% of what it was in 1971, right? Or 1972. I mean, it's really pretty atrocious. And so for this reason, I just want to remind everybody, think through your investments. Do go and look at things like gold. I mean, I like real estate as well. I like gold. I like anything that's really going to help you hedge this inflationary environment. I definitely don't like treasuries as a result of that, not with a 1.3% yield on treasuries. And so I just want to remind you, if you're looking at gold, do go and talk to my friends over at Legacy Precious Metals. They've been in the business for 40 years, so they really, really know this, and they'll help tailor an investment portfolio that is really specific to you. Their number, it's on the screen here, 866-589-0560, legacypminvestments.com, 866-589-0560. But again, this is really a challenging time, I think, in that if we're not careful, we'll lose what we have, right? I talk about this a lot because I'm concerned that the America that we once knew, and you think back to that sort of picket fence and the, 2 kids and a dog and one working member of the family, the household of the 1950s. And that was actually a pretty special time. But that was also a time when we looked out for our US dollar because we were looking out for the gold standard. And those days are sort of gone right now, right? I mean, that's long gone. And you look at the travesty that's unfolding right now, for example, in Afghanistan, and it really does feel like the 1970s all over again. The morale of the country, I think, is getting quite depressed, because this is a president who, like Jimmy Carter, seems pretty inept on the foreign policy front. There's a lot of sort of analogies that could be drawn between the foreign policy situation then and what Jimmy Carter, the mistakes he made with Iran, and the mistakes that are being made right now with Afghanistan. And look, I'm not someone who's advocating for us staying in Afghanistan or anywhere else in the world for that matter. I'm a big believer in refocusing our energy to new kinds of warfare, including cyber warfare, which is very real, and really focusing on trade and these issues where we can have an impact and help our economy simultaneously. But you can't just walk away. I mean, you can't. I'm sorry, but don't sugarcoat what's going on. I tweeted this out the other day. Everybody talks about these forced marriages of little girls, and these aren't forced marriages. These are rapes, and don't in any way sugarcoat really what's happening, because this is a barbaric group of terrorists that have taken over this country, and we're allowing it. Right? We're allowing it. And you may say, well, we don't want to impose our American standards. I'm sorry, guys. You know what? We kind of own it. We've been there 20 years. And when we weren't there, don't forget, they allowed the Taliban allowed Al-Qaeda to exist and operate within its country, which then, landed us 9/11. And you think about the $1 trillion that was spent and the 2,300 lives that were lost, and you say, what's it all for? Right? So there's sort of a Vietnam-esque like moment as well going on, which I talked about on the podcast the other day, because you think about the images of our embassy personnel being lifted out of Saigon, and you now look at the images right now. I mean, it's far worse what we're seeing in Kabul and at the airport. And Americans, they were lifted in the helicopter right off the embassy in Kabul. And now you see these images coming to us from the airport of people plunging to their deaths. Joe Biden apparently isn't even aware. He's out there saying in interviews that, nobody's died. A reported 12 people have died. We've seen the video of the people clinging to the landing gear as the plane took off and them falling and plunging to their deaths. I mean, this is not good. This is not good. But in the interest of our sponsorship and maybe talking about something that is a little bit good and a little bit more cheerful right now. I don't know what your plans are for the weekend, but I always love barbecuing in the summer. You probably enjoy grilling out too. And one of the greatest companies that's out there right now to help you in this process and also support American farmers is a company called GoodRanchers.com. And I like them a lot. I actually get their family subscription delivered to my house once a month, and they have a ton of wonderful quality meat. I'm super picky, so when I say it's really good quality, believe me, it's really good quality, wonderful quality at a terrific price. I mean, it's less than $3 a meal, basically, which is unheard of, especially in these inflationary times, right? So GoodRanchers.com, a wonderful, wonderful way to really help you with your cooking and your grilling out. And I encourage you to go to their website. Make sure you go to goodranchers.com/Trish, because I know the owners and we've worked out a special deal. You're going to get $20 off plus free shipping. And they have many, many different things you can choose from, whether it be the family subscription, which is what I get, or many of the others. I can assure you, you're going to be really happy because it's wonderful quality. And you're supporting American farmers. This is all organic, grass-fed meat, chicken, as well as beef. I mean, you can get tenderloins, filet mignon, porterhouse steaks. I mean, just wonderful, great stuff. I don't think you can go wrong. And it's nice to think about those happy things that we can do right now in America, as opposed to all the nuttiness that's going on. And part of this nuttiness, I would argue, comes from the politicization, if you would, of some of our institutions, like the Federal Reserve. I mean, think about Jerome Powell. Right? Jerome Powell had no problem during the Trump years, in part because the economy was so good during the 2016 through 19 era. But he had no problem as head of the Federal Reserve saying, yeah, I'm going to up interest rates. And now, for some reason, it's just killing these guys to have to actually, one, cut back on their bond purchases, which is artificially keeping rates down, which is basically a fancy way of saying they're money printing. They're money printing and devaluing your dollars in the process, devaluing our retirement, our future in the process. So that's going on. And he has no problem doing that while simultaneously keeping rates at record lows and focusing entirely on employment as opposed to inflation. Well, I got news for him. It's just 5.4% unemployment. Right? I'd be a little more concerned about the 5.4% inflation read than the 5.4% unemployment, because you know what? The unemployment's low. The inflation is quite high. It's like these guys are all inverted. They're doing the reverse of what they should. You should actually be worried about inflation being that high, rather than focus on unemployment. I mean, unemployment really doesn't seem to be the issue right now. We got jobless claims in for Thursday. Those were pretty good. They're actually at the lowest level that they've been at since this pandemic began, in the 300,000 range, which is relatively healthy. I mean, it shows that we're kind of sort of back to normal. Granted, a lot of people may be choosing to exit the workforce. You look at the labor force participation rate, which is still pretty weak, and a lot of people are choosing to, just not participate right now. But nonetheless, 5.4% unemployment, that's nothing to argue with. I'd be focusing on that inflation, but they can't because they're so politicized. I mean, Janet Yellen now, we've definitely seen who she is. She kind of used to hide a little bit more when she was running the Fed. Right now that she's Treasury Secretary, it's pretty clear she believes in this total wealth redistribution. And the guy that's working for her effectively, and he shouldn't be working for her, but he's kind of serving a bit at her recommendation, which perhaps may not be for long. And we'll find out more in the Fed meeting that's coming up in Jackson Hole. But nonetheless, he's kind of trying to do her bidding. And that's disappointing because that does show you the politicization of such a revered institution. And you look at Congress, which, yeah, you know what? At one point it was revered. Okay. And the presidency, which at one point was revered. These are institutions which are just sort of crumbling in light of the nasty political environment in which we now live. The biggest concern, though, is that there's not much of a path forward if this team continues to be in charge, because the economy is not front and center. The American worker is not front and center. They're doing everything. They claim they're trying to help the middle class, but all they're doing is helping the wealthy. All right, that's the reality of it. When you print money, it's the wealthy that benefit because they have money invested in the assets. And it's your middle class and your poor that are missing out. So we're going to continue this conversation definitely tomorrow. I've got some strategies for you because you should be thinking about how you position yourself in light of all of this. And we need to position ourselves as a country. We need to take charge as people, right? We need to actually take charge of our destiny and force our leaders to start doing the right thing. What we saw in Afghanistan is not the right thing. What we're seeing from the Federal Reserve, maybe finally they'll finally cut back on bond purchases, and maybe finally, I don't know, in the next couple of years at some point decide to raise interest rates. Look, it's not the right thing. And so as Americans, it's up to us to be very vocal and to call it out. One way you can call it out, go to trishintel.com, subscribe to my newsletter, and check out my store. I've got the Trish Regan store with all kinds of live free or die stuff, all for you. We'll continue talking again tomorrow. I'll be right back here. Do subscribe to the channel. Do give me a thumbs up. Do like it. Give it a rumble. Wherever you are, YouTube, Rumble. I look forward to talking with you once again tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.